Hi everyone. You're listening to a conversation with Daniel Lee, better known as DLKC, a pop artist and music producer based in Singapore. Daniel began his musical journey in a creative household inspired by bands like Boys Like Girls and Fall Out Boy. He later fronted the local alternative rock band, The Summer Drive, and earned a diploma in music and audio technology from Singapore Polytechnic. Over time, he transitioned into mainstream pop production, drawing influence from artists like Lauv, LANY, and Valley. He describes his style as blending sentimental early 2000s punk rock with the modern textures of today's indie pop. In this episode, Daniel opens up about his journey and key moments in his career, how he navigated support and skepticism in a niche industry, as well as his take on Singapore's music landscape. He also shares advice for aspiring musicians and producers finding their way in a fast changing industry. Quick note: you might notice some volume inconsistencies during the recording. I appreciate you bearing with this as I work to improve the overall quality. We'll be featuring one of Daniel's original track at the end, so stick around to experience the heart and soundscape behind his music.
Hey Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, the last we spoke was about a month ago, and I think I've got some sense as to what you're doing now, but our listeners don't know. So you want to share a bit more of what you're doing now, and how do you split your time? I know that you're a musician and producers. You want to tell us what exactly you're doing?
Yeah. So for me, for those people that know me lah, at least like public eye wise, they know me as DLKC. So I'm a artist and a producer.
Wow.
So yeah. So a lot of people that know me mostly know me for production specifically, because a lot of them are my clients. A lot of musicians in the scene, they come to me for production work. Yeah. So be it mixing or like arranging a track for them or co-writing a song, things like that. So that's my main bulk of work. I also play gigs. I also, what else do I do?
What else do you do?
Post content. Yeah, have to, right? Because
Yeah.
like I said, I'm also an artist. Yeah, so all of them have to be done kind of like in conjunction with each other. Yeah. So that's what
Okay.
people mostly know me to do.
I see. You mentioned two roles that you are doing now, which is musician and producing. What's the difference between musician and a producer?
Okay, I think that's a fantastic question because like a lot of people don't quite understand the difference. So like being a producer is somebody that is able to take music and apply their discretion within the context of creating a track, or like for example, if it's a corporate track, what kind of notes should you be playing, what's overplaying, because in that context is a lot there's a lot of difference between that and trying to play like guitar live, for example. So a musician is just someone who can play an instrument, right? So a producer takes that ability to play and kind of puts it in context, and there's a lot of maturity in the decision making and like the notes that you choose, the rhythms that you choose to use in a certain section of a song. Yeah, so that's the main role of a producer lah. So if you call yourself a producer, by default, usually you can play an instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
I see. That's interesting. Would you say that the professional musicians that you work with, do they know how to produce? I mean, I think the technical skills you have to learn, but would someone who can play music, do they necessarily would they be able to produce as well, you think?
I would say it takes a while to attain that discretion. Yeah. So like if you're a producer, your greatest asset is your discretion. So I would say that if a musician wants to be a producer, so you already have like the first step, being able to play an instrument. So that gives you some form of discretion. Then the next step is to take a step back, look at the bird's eye view, and think about the bigger picture of the track that you're trying to create. Yeah. So like for example, uh I'm not sure about you, but a lot of people love the live recordings of Bruno Mars.
Okay.
So even at the all the different music awards and stuff, like he actually has fantastic live arrangements.
Right.
But the reason why they're fantastic is because it's built for the live audience. But when you listen to that same song on Spotify or on Apple Music, like it's very, very different. It's very controlled. There are very, very clear hooks. Some parts are like very dry, like there's no reverb, no delay or anything like that.
Mm.
But when it comes to live, suddenly you have live drums and everything's very bright, and the brass section kind of like pokes through everything, and then there are so many steps and hits and stuff like that. So that's what building for a live audience entails, and that's how you build the entire arrangement. So being a musician and trying to be a producer, like how I mentioned, they're two very different things. But trying to produce in the context of the track that you want to create, like that is the next step. Apart from being able to play an instrument, yeah.
I see. What are the skill sets necessary to be a producer and like a really good producer and a really good musician? How would you differentiate both?
I would say that
I mean, or it could be that to be a good producer, you must be actually a good musician because there are some skill sets involved. I mean, you could see that way.
you could
have
yeah,
separate
yeah.
skill sets. Yeah. What? How would you say it?
I would say that being able to play an instrument, arguably it's not necessarily the starting point of a producer, although for many people it is lah. But being able to produce, there are a lot of producers out there who can't actually play instruments very well.
Right.
Like, yeah, okay, for myself, for an example, like there are I have many musician friends who far exceed my technical capability, but the reason why they don't become producers is because it's sort of like the same, but like it's a tangent of a skill set. Yeah. So being able to control the notes that you play and think about what you're trying to express, building for context. So these are like the best skills that you have as a producer. It's your greatest asset. That's what people will always come to you for. Yeah, it's not necessarily the playing or the technical ability of like playing piano very well or something, for example. Yeah. So for musicians to become producers, like it's very possible, but the flexibility that you need to have in your mind has to be quite extraordinary. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So you mentioned that you do both gigs and producing. What's the split between the time you spend? How on a weekly basis? How do you spend your time? I think a lot of my listeners wouldn't have an idea of how working in the music scene is like in Singapore, or list of which just music scene in general. I think it's a very niche industry. So how does it work for you?
How does it work for me? Okay, so like I mentioned, I do a few things, right? Like, so I create content as an artist, and I produce, and I also play gigs. So for me, the way I see it is it's kind of like, for gigs at least, it's kind of like trading skill and time for money, right? So like within a set amount of time, you earn a certain amount of money that the venue pays you in order to entertain their customers. So that is sort of like a little bit more stable in terms of income. So in that regard also, it becomes like a fixed part of the schedule. Yeah, because usually for gigs, unless you're like subbing people all the time, in which case you would not have some form of stable income. But if you have regular gigs every week, then it becomes a fixed part of your schedule. So that becomes like the less chaotic part of your life. Yeah. But as a producer, that's when things get a bit more hectic. Like having to schedule in like vocal recording, schedule in time to create tracks. Sometimes like the timing overruns for like the amount of time that you need to create a track. So you have to push back vocal recordings, or if not, somebody falls sick, like having a sore throat or having cough, then the person can't sing. So therefore, you cannot have the vocal recording. So because of that, the timeline gets pushed back. Things like that. So like it's very unpredictable to be able to try and schedule things in. So for a large part of my weekly schedule, there are a lot of changes that I have to make last minute, which is why I try not to keep things too tightly packed in. Yeah. So the way I prioritize things, apart from the gigs, is to just look at the things that I need to do, like the tracks that I need to build, like things that I can do by myself without the second person in the room. And I will always keep those kind of like in my pocket, and I'll take it out the moment somebody like cancels or pushes a session or anything like that. But of course, there are also days that I block out just to like create the tracks and stuff. Yeah. So that's the general way I prioritize my time. Yeah. And as for navigating the music industry as a whole, I would say that like a lot of people have this impression that uh, doing music in Singapore is not sustainable at all. But I'll beg to differ because I've been doing it for like a year and a half now, almost 2 years soon. I think by next year May. Yeah. And for me, it's pretty sustainable. It's just that it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do it because you have to be used to this kind of chaos and being able to be flexible every week. Yeah.
Going back to my earlier question of how you split your day. So a typical weekend, what's the mix between the producing part and the gigging part? So I assume at night you'll be gigging and then perhaps in the day you'll be doing the producing. Is that how it works?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. But of course, during the day there are a lot of mandatory things that I have to do other than just producing lah. So it can just be administrative work, right? Because like how do I put it? You can consider me a freelancer, but at the same time, you also could call me like a small business, depending on how you look at things. But the point is like there is a lot of administrative back end work that I need to do, things like scheduling, invoicing, um, scheduling based on the payout of certain events,
Right.
certain deadlines that I have to meet, things like that. So yeah, it's a lot of this kind of back end work. Yeah, prioritization lah, basically.
Okay. When it comes to being a great musician and producer, which one do you want to grow more into? Because you do both roles, right? Which is a musician and producer. What kind of producer do you want to grow into, or a musician and grow into? Would you focus one a bit more down the road? What is your plan, perhaps in the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay. I would say that my main thing will always be production.
Right.
Yeah, not that I'm saying I will not perform live and stuff, or like musical direct for other artists and stuff like that. For sure, I will, because like the role is flexible, right? Yeah, but my main thing will always is and always will be production. Yeah, so maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, I've told this to some of my friends before that like, within Singapore, I want to be the number one call to be a producer.
Nice.
Yeah, if you want a song produced like for pop or like anything that slightly deviates from pop, yeah, so I want to be that number one call. Yeah, so that's the 3 to 5 year plan lah, and perhaps down the road I want to open a big commercial studio in Singapore. Yeah.
Wow.
So you can call me ambitious or something like that lah. But the way I see it is if you have a will, there's a way lah.
I see. Okay. You have this grand plan that you want to be able to create a commercial studio. You want to be the number one producer in Singapore. How did this all start? What were the key moments that gave you clarity that this was something that you wanted to do?
I would say key moments that made me want to go into music. For me, it was when I was in university and like I took an internship doing some kind of corporate editorial work, and to me that was the next best thing really. But I was like, at the end of those 3 months, I was like, you know what, I'm never gonna do this again. I absolutely hated it, and I asked myself, what was the one thing that I wouldn't mind doing, or rather, what would I enjoy doing for the rest of my life? And the answer to me was very clear. It was music. So then the next question was, how do I create a sustainable living from music? So I decided, okay, it was probably playing gigs. And I was like, once COVID hit, then it was a rude awakening, because that was when I was starting to get gigs here and there. Then I realized rather that like, I cannot put all my eggs in one basket, and I expanded from then on, because it was about 1.5 years, right, the entire COVID duration. So I reinvented myself and went into production, and I discovered that actually I was pretty good at it. So from then on, I decided that okay, production will be my main thing, because I've invested so much time to figure out how to do that when I was stuck at home during COVID, right? So that was sort of like the turning point for me when I decided to make a living out of music and want to go into production. Yeah. So like I said, I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket, right?
Yep.
So that's why I'm still kind of doing all these things up to this point. Yeah,
Cool. How about even before that?
even before
maybe
that.
in your more formative years, back when you were in maybe secondary school, were you already how sure you were that you wanted to be in music?
How sure I was. I knew that I wanted to do music to some degree. On what level I wasn't 100% sure
Mm.
when I was younger, but I always knew that like music will always be a big part of my life, regardless of whether I pursue it professionally or not. Because like I'm not sure about you, but I always had those moments when I was young, where I kind of attach certain key moments of my life to certain songs that I listen to. Yeah. So for me, a big song was Thunder by Boys Like Girls.
Yeah, I know.
I think you remember that, right? Like
Oh,
at
is it
some
Your Voice? Is that a song?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think almost over 10 years ago, we were. Oh, I remember we recorded a cover together. Actually, it was into voice memos. iPhone 3G just released,
Yeah.
and we were experimenting with the voice memo. So I remember you played guitar for that song. That particular cover very long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, Thunder was a big song.
Mm.
So I attached that always to my secondary school days when I was first learning how to play guitar. Yeah, so that was so it was at that point in time I knew that like there was some kind of gifting, but I also really enjoyed it, which was the more defining thing that caused me to want to do music. It's because I truly enjoyed it. And there was not many other things in my life that I could truly say that
Right.
I 100% enjoy even through the good times and the bad times. Yeah. So music is that one consistent thing. Yeah.
I see. So that's quite early on when I first knew you and some of the things that we did together. How about in between? So you also
In
mentioned
between.
about when you're working for the magazine company, that
Yeah, yeah.
internship, you realized that that wasn't something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And also in COVID, it gave you a chance to figure out like, hey, what's really important. So you branched out into music producing. Were there other factors, family, friends, that affected um, how much you wanted to pursue music?
Um I wouldn't say that like people externally from myself, no matter how close, truly impacted what I wanted to do in my life. Yeah, because for me, I always known that I wanted to do music, to some degree professionally lah, but not, of course, not when I was younger. But as time passed and I came to that realization I mentioned just now, um, the decision did come from within myself to pursue music. Yeah, and I guess my family and friends all kind of come to terms with that decision of mine and supported me through trying to establish myself and trying to get different income streams within music. Yeah, but I would also say that it's incredibly important to have a circle of people around you that uh not just are there to support you, but also push you, are willing to tell you things straight to your face, like if you're messing up or you're being dumb about things. Like those people are important. Like shame each other into excellence. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people would maybe not agree with me so much, about like I swan you, then like, or because you're not doing something properly, I swan you, like, oh, be nice, you should be nice. But
Yeah.
I tend to disagree a little bit because like it's what I like to call uh constructive interference. Yeah.
Okay.
So like sometimes you need these real awakenings, and the ones
Yeah.
that truly love you are the ones that would dare to do it to you. Yeah.
Cool. Very early on, you mentioned at one point, I know that your dad plays the guitar and he was in music, quite a big deal as well. Was that one of your influence as well?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I would say that I had a musical family lah growing up. So and of course, like we were in the
Did your
same
mom
church together.
sing?
Right?
Did your mom sing also? Or
I have never heard her sing to this day. I have never
wait,
heard her sing.
and she serves in church.
She used to serve in church.
Oh my,
But
you
that
have
was
never heard her sing.
Yes, that was before I was born. Yeah, and that's incredible. To this day, I've known her for 27 years of my life, but I've never heard her sing.
I see. Okay, so she had a part to play, just that not a part you may have heard about.
Yeah, I guess. I guess it's in my blood, like you could say so.
Okay, cool. Were there any big breaks for you? Sorry, anything that there was a lot in your favor? Perhaps like a certain course. I actually can't remember what you took in uni. but were there certain things that happened that made it easier? So, your parents, your dad played the guitar, so you could learn the guitar much more easily because you could learn stuff from him. You could pick up his guitar. Were there things that opened for you?
Specifically university or like
Just along the
in
way.
general?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that things became easy. Okay, like the first response to that would probably be there's no easy way to do it. Yeah. For me, I've never attended a single lesson of music in my life. Yeah. I don't think I have, like, at least the instruments that I play very how do I put it? Like the instruments that I play on a regular basis, I've never attended lessons for those
Right.
in my life.
And that would be guitar and bass.
Yeah. But like the instruments that I do out of necessity. Like for example, playing piano. I did attend classes when I was like primary 1 or primary 2, but I didn't even make it to grade 1. So like you see how the stark difference is, right? So like stuff that I've taken lessons for. So in a way, like I'm quite literally being taught how to do a certain thing. I didn't progress as far. But for the things that I've never had lessons for, like playing guitar and playing bass, these are like my stronger instruments. Like quite a bit stronger. So like I would say that there's no real easy way to do it. It's whether you want to or not. Yeah. So I think that defines whether or not you make something out of your talent or like what you fundamentally have as a producer or musician even. Yeah.
Did you manage to meet people who greatly helped you in this career path, or is it, as you mentioned, everything you kind of had to learn by yourself? You didn't have formative training, prior training to it. Everything you had to kind of pick up and learn. Were there anything that happened that like sort of your big break, or you were lucky to meet this person? Was there something that happened to you?
I guess so. I guess you could say that. Yeah. In the past like about 4 years that I've been doing music, first semi-professionally, then professionally.
Yep.
Along the way to be able to craft that professional career that I eventually stepped into after uni, I've had to meet people who are willing to take a chance on me. Yeah. So I found a way. So like of course like one of them has to be Anvil Music Productions.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the first studio that I worked with, and they were willing to take a chance on me because they wanted to start business. They were a startup, right? So like naturally you have to have somebody that fills the shoes of being the service provider. Yeah, so I have to be the one to step into the producer shoes.
Right.
Because I did sort of have the qualifications. I did music and audio production in Polytechnic, although I didn't learn much from whatever I did in Poly.
Don't say which poly. That's
yeah. I'm not gonna say which Poly, but whoever's listening to this, I'm sure that they will be able to figure it out. Okay, but anyway, I didn't learn a lot of things back then, honestly. Because I think I just wasn't like in the right state of mind to do it.
Yeah.
But it's only when I headed to university, then that's when I picked it up properly. And somebody took a chance on me, Anvil Music Productions, and they paid me while allowing me to learn on the job. So they gave me projects and gave me clients, and I had to handle them with the owners of Anvil Music Production, and I also got to figure out all the technical stuff along the way. Yeah, so they took a chance on me. So of course I'm very grateful for that. So like I would say that is the first stepping stone. And right after that, because I had that so-called like first experience, other people started to trust me. So like other artists in Singapore who wanted to produce music, for example, like Daniel Sid or Yonki Town, like that's his artist name.
Yeah.
So these two people were the first few people who trusted me right after Anvil started to do so. Yeah, so those I guess were sort of like the first few people you could say that helped me build my career. So
Nice.
to some degree it's luck, but I also believe in like law of attraction. You know, like when people have like like-minded goals, yeah, and your paths align because of those goals, like people just naturally gravitate to each other. So I think that's what happened lah. Yeah.
Nice. Very
insightful to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Were there people who actually discouraged you from picking music as a career, especially in Singapore? I think a lot of people wouldn't think of pursuing music just generally as a career, but more so in Singapore. Were there people who, yeah, maybe discouraged you, or did that happen to you?
Um, I would say, of course, there were like people who discouraged me to do so, lah. I'm not gonna name who, but we've had this conversation before. Yeah.
We know.
We know.
Yeah, we know.
Excuse me. So the people I would say that discourage me from doing these things, I would say there are people that are not as important in my life. So if I had to step away from them in order to pursue what I wanted, I wouldn't regret it. So I
Right.
decided to do so. Yeah. So I would say like having your own internal compass is more important than
Right.
just having the people around you like be supportive. You know what I mean? Yeah. The people around you that are supportive are the people that are either of the same breed or people that truly believe in you. And the people, like, it's sort of like when you have your own internal compass and you move towards a certain direction, the people that follow you or stay with you are the people who are worth keeping, especially when you know where you're headed is a sustainable path and where you want to go, regardless of whether you fail in life or not. You know what I mean? So sometimes you do have to take that risk, and the people that stick with you throughout that risk are the people that are worth keeping. So yeah, that's kind of like a roundabout way to answer the question, but there were people that discouraged me from trying to pursue music, but I guess I proved them wrong, right?
Yeah. How about your parents? I think that would seem like a
For
very
sure.
strong push and pull on whether you should
Yeah.
pursue music even. How did that work out?
I would say that I mean, it worked out for the better, right? Because I'm obviously pursuing music now, but the way I got to this state honestly did not was not filled with tension or anything like that. Yeah, but of course there were like concerns lah. Like we always have to have the talk, right? Because they're my parents and everything. So we did have a conversation before when I was in the second year of university, and that was when I decided that I wanted to pursue music full time. And I told my parents, you know what, I'm seriously considering dropping out because like I feel university has no bearing whatsoever on my career path. So they were like, you're already in your second year. We've already paid like half the uni fees. So you should just finish it.
Yeah, better not waste
Then
it, right?
yeah, better not waste it, right? So I struck a deal with them. I told them I will finish my university, but I think I will do decently well. I'll put enough effort to do decently well. But you have to understand that right after that, I'm not gonna stay in this field anymore. I'm gonna move into music. And they said, okay, at least you are gonna finish your university. And of course there are a lot of intangibles that you get out of university, right? But that was more or less how the conversation went, and the rest was history. Like they never ever doubted music as a career path for me because they saw what I was doing after that. Yeah.
Okay. So stepping out of uni and when you decided to pursue music as a career path, what do you learn? Like maybe the first year when you stepped out, right, from doing your own gigs, playing music casually to doing it a bit more
Yeah.
professionally as a career. What do you learn? What are some things you have learned doing this thing in your first year?
Within my first year, I would say that I learned different things for like within different aspects of like having music as a career. Yeah, within gigs, I would say that it's important to have confidence. I learned how to build my confidence because
Right.
I'm not naturally a confident person. So I would say that was sort of like the testing ground to force myself into that state of mind where I'm able to hold myself confidently. Yeah. Well, of course, like there are other technical aspects like being able to speak live in front of people and sing live confidently with like barely with, like sometimes they request songs and like I barely know the song. I maybe heard it like twice or three times in my life. and it's buried in my mind. But I have to figure a way out how to play the song. So it's like having that like almost like a false sense of confidence at that given moment and jump into it, and then you realize, hey, dude, actually you're doing better than you think. Yeah, so that's what I learned from gigging quite a bit.
Yep.
And for production, for me, the it's about having clarity in your workflow. Yeah, so like of course these are all like life principles and stuff. Like, but but for production, the main thing that I learned was the clarity in your workflow. If you're able to think very logically and you are smooth, then there are a lot of things that you can achieve. Like it takes away a lot of low level decision making, fatigue. Yeah. So then you can focus on the bigger picture, and that's kind of like a life principle as well, right? So if you can so called like automate, like brushing your teeth and like showering,
Automate brushing.
yeah, it's almost like a form of automation, right? Like to be able to take away low level decision fatigue. So then you can focus on what are the things that require your attention the most. It's all about prioritization and like the clarity of your mind. So that's what production taught me. So these are the two very, very big things that I have to learn in my first year. Yeah.
I see. Very cool. How would you describe the? I think we have the giants, which are like Hollywood, or like I don't know what's the equivalent for music. Like the Sony group, all that. Everybody knows the music scene there is like very big. All the big artists come from there. Where would you say Singapore is in terms of the music landscape? We have our local artists, Stephanie San, and
DJ Lin.
DJ Lin,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They all seem to have gone abroad first to kind of be known there, and then when they get big overseas, then they come back to Singapore. How would you describe the music landscape in Singapore? Like, how do people usually flow? What's your take on all these?
I would say that there is a lot of credibility the moment you make it overseas and come back to Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course for obvious reasons that I don't really need a state, right? Like, but I would say that from the ground up, if you are based in Singapore and you choose to stay in Singapore and don't want to venture overseas to do music, I think it's still very possible.
Right.
Yeah, because now we live in an attention-based society. If you can hold attention, you can sell anything. So it's the same thing with music. If you are a content creator, you know how to create content around your music. You know how to create content around your personality. The moment you can do that, you can hold attention. And when you release music, you can sell anything. People who follow you will listen to you. Yeah, so that's the way I see it lah. And like with like the internet and like social media, especially like TikTok and all that stuff, right? So everything is so democratized now. Like, and everything is so like all the borders are being crossed. So the moment you can do social media, you can do everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in the past, people would have to, as what I mentioned, people would have to go overseas to get the exposure. But what you're saying is that now people, because of social media, you mentioned TikTok, perhaps Spotify and YouTube, it's very easy to get your content out. So if you are able to find a way to draw attention consistently, actually, you might not necessarily have to go overseas. You can actually start your base in Singapore.
Yeah. But of course, like I would say, like never say never, right? Like always be ready to make moves in your career that will further your career. And if that means moving overseas for a short period of time or like going on tour overseas, then so be it. There's still a lot of value in doing so, I believe. But to sort of like get your foot to a decent standing, the game of social media is the easiest way to do it. Of course, there's a lot of like back end things like signing a good distribution deal or like going to a record label to ask them to support your music. Things like that. So of course these things would work to some degree as well, but like it's like I mentioned, it's so democratized nowadays, right? That you can do everything yourself. So long as you can do social media and you're able to sell something by holding attention. Yeah. So it's more or less these two things lah. Yeah.
Okay. Now for some fun questions. Now I mean we've been talking about the landscape and how the music scene is like in Singapore. Who are your influences? Especially if you have local ones, I'd like to
Local
hear.
influences.
Yeah, I of course not limited to the local ones, but if you have any local influences, both in terms of the music producing and the artists themselves, I'd like to hear like who are your influences.
Okay. International influences first. So I'm the biggest Boys Like Girls fan there is. So
Wait, and that's been from the past, right? I think in the
Yeah.
past you also like Boys Like Girls a lot.
yeah,
right?
yeah. Since the day you knew
thunder,
me,
right? The thunder.
yes,
song.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've known them for a good 15 years. I still love them now.
Have you attended? Have they?
Yes, they have came.
in Singapore?
Yeah, they came last year.
And you went for that concert.
Yes,
Uh,
they performed at Hard Rock Colosseum, and they premiered a new song, and they dropped an album this year, a new album.
Okay.
So it's a new and reformed sound. So like they are my, like, I guess you could call them my idol, right? I guess like their music just connects with me for some strange reason. And I know there are a lot of Boys Like Girls fans out there, especially in Singapore. This is the reason why they came on tour to Singapore. Yeah. Okay, so that's a big one for me. But local influences, I would say very early on. Maybe when I was in Polytechnic, so maybe about 17, 18 years old. A big one was Gentle
Yellow.
Bones.
No, Gentle Bones.
Yeah,
local,
Gentle Bones,
Yeah,
local, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Gentle Bones was a big one for me. I actually attended his EP launch, and I think I met him in person at some point in time. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but he was a big influence for me because like that was when folk pop was really coming up, and that's how I kind of understood the genre a bit better. Yeah, that was because Gentle Bones first pioneered that sound in Singapore. Yeah, then there are of course like a lot of other really good artists in Singapore right now that have very modern sounding music. For example, like Ranga Jones, I really enjoy his music. They are very palatable, very pop sound, very pop R&B type of sound, which is quite my thing. Yeah, it's what I enjoy listening to, it's what I enjoy to produce, it's what I enjoy writing as well. So even for my stuff, it's heavily influenced by that type of sound. Yeah. Perhaps another one would be Benjamin King. Yeah. His arrangements are all full of like theatrical type of sounds. Theatrical elements in the arrangement. So like it has a very robust type of soundscape, it's very full and very impactful at the same time. Yeah, so those are probably my bigger local influences. Yeah.
Okay. My maybe people are not so interested in what I like. I listen a lot to Tom Misch, so I like the kind of
Tom Misch, okay,
very groovy, a bit of funky, but still not so niche. Still like within a certain pop realm. Paramore, I have for a very long time, even though they have changed their style over the years, I still really like the signature voice of Hayley Williams. Yeah, she sounds really good. Yeah.
Okay.
But I love the old school
alt
rock and the rock songs.
Same. I love it.
I listen for it time to time.
Yes. Yeah.
Nowadays I listen to a bit slower, gentler kind of music. There's this artist called Prep, Prep.
Prep.
But it's within the Tom Misch space. Prep. Foom is
Foom.
you know.
No, I don't think I'm familiar with those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but Tom Misch was a big one for me when I was.
He's so groovy and so funky. His lines are always so makes you want to dance. I like song that makes you want to like dance and move about. Yeah, not too much, but you can groove to it. I really love when they have like something signature about them. I think Tom Misch does that really well.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that he, like, most guitarists don't claim to be bassists and most bassists don't claim to be guitarists. But Tom Misch, if I'm not wrong, does both. That's why he's playing so groovy.
Right. Exactly. Right. Maybe that's why there's a very clear sync between like the guitar lines and how the bass seems very complementary.
Yeah. And I would say that to some degree also, he is a very good example of a musician who has learned the discretion of being a producer. Yeah. So okay. For example, another person that this is a good comparison. I would say that Slash is an artist, right? But for him, he was somebody who kind of like blurts out a lot of notes at one go, right? So that is being a musician, like the old school musicians and artists, right?
Like the rock Slash, right? The Guns N' Roses Slash, right?
Yes, correct. Okay. Guns N' Roses, all that kind of music, right? Like encompasses musicians who have a strong amount of technical ability, and also producers that allow for that strong technical ability to shine through. But in today's day and age, it's about keeping things palatable, keeping things controlled, things like that. So if you want to allow technical ability to shine through, but still keep it palatable, then a good example of that is Tom Misch, because he's able to dial it down, but he can also like expand on his playing to the degree and intensity of Slash. You know what I mean? Of course, different genres, but Slash is an example of someone who's very, very clearly a musician and artist, but also has like some degree of discretion to control what he's playing. But Tom Misch has that even clearer discretion in today's day and age to kind of focus his sound down into nitpicking and choosing his notes. Yeah.
There are a lot of these artists, like one-man band. I think that's what I understand. They not only produce, but they have, I think because of how easy it is to access software and those kind of digital pads that you can have different instruments.
Yeah.
You can play all at once. Is that part of what you mean by the palatable? They can do just a bit of everything, and then it makes it very easy to listen to, but yet not losing a certain signature.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. But not limited to just being able to like one man band everything. Yeah. It's more of especially within pop, right? Things have to be kept very minimalistic, but also very groovy, or if not very spacey, like the kind of thing. Like there are like more extreme forms of like music that you would go into, like so for example, Flowers by Miley Cyrus, very, very minimalistic but very groovy at the same time. Yeah, so it's these type of songs that will always like so-called like stand the test of time, and they will always be hits. Yeah. So for example, another good song that is busy but kept very focused is that Jungkook song, the new one.
I'm actually not Jungkook is a K-pop, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a K-pop fan at all, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, but Bruno Mars is another example.
Yeah.
So very busy
Bruno Mars.
arrangement, but but also kind of very, very focused. Yeah, and he has a very clear sound.
Yeah, clear sound. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
It's like you can hear the starting line. And if I'll give you a list of artists, you can say, no, that's a very Bruno Mars kind of line.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that's about keeping things palatable. So it's not necessarily that you have to like strip away all instruments and keep it very minimalistic. Minimalistic is just one way of going about it, but keeping things palatable.
There must be a focus, especially if you are trying to gain attention and kind of be in pop. I see. Okay. I see. In Singapore, right? Are there like schemes or things to help budding artists?
Schemes to help budding artists.
Yeah. Was there anything you mentioned that you had to Anvil Music, you worked with them, and then from there are other opportunities, other doors that opened. Is there any help from the government that you know of or that you signed up for that helps musicians, or do you think it's actually not a focus of kind of Singapore government? Like we are still focus more on like doctors, lawyers, engineers, and other white collar jobs. What?
That's an interesting question. At least from what I know, is that if you're a musician in Singapore, you are either generally classified under freelancer or you own a small business. Yeah, which is like my case lah. It's a very generic categorization. There's nothing in particular that's for musicians, unless you talk about like the NAC lah, the National Arts Council. Right. So that's when they give grants and stuff like that. So
to budding artists or to small businesses?
To budding artists. Yeah, the National Arts Council is specifically to cater to arts. Yeah, so music is an art form. So they would naturally allow music to fall under the umbrella lah. So for example, if you want to hold a concert, you kind of have been releasing music and you have a small fan base and like you want to hold a small concert. So if you want to do that, then you can apply to NAC's open call grants. Yeah. So you're able to get at least a percentage if they are willing to subsidized from your total cost. Yeah, but of course it's difficult to get because you need some kind of track record to be able to do that.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Make sure you're not singing any like complaint about the government or
I'm sure they will take that into consideration, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah. But NEC is something that focuses on music directly. But because of the general classification of most musicians or people who work in music, like we are small businesses or if not freelancers, we also sort of get the grants slash schemes that come along with that general categorization. For example, when we were in COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first 3 months they did have there was a package, right? That was released for the first 2 to 3 months. We were paid like $2,000 or something like that for people who completely lost their jobs and were in the freelance industry.
Yeah.
So because of that generic classification, we also qualify for that. But of course back then I didn't like I was still in university. So I
Not
always
you, but
no, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that we at least have these two things that are going for us. But something very specific to music, I don't think there is. Other than the open call grants, I don't think that there is anything
The open
else.
call one is the National Arts Council thing, is it?
Yeah, the National Arts Council
Yeah, that
thing.
seems like I think one good way to encourage budding artists to take on these subsidies to help to offset costs and makes it easier for people to showcase their music. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I come back to what you mentioned about the nowadays you can actually draw attention abroad through social media. So that's probably something you would recommend others to do.
Yeah.
They're just relying on like, oh, I need government support. I need to find there are new ways that can be done to get your music out.
Yeah. I would say that like social media is still like the main thing now. But of course there are a lot of like other more traditional methods of doing it lah. Yeah, which is like I don't know, like know somebody in the record label and like just get signed and then you just keep releasing music and like get an advance on your music so you have some kind of budget to work with to produce your music with a renowned producer, and then eventually you put out all sorts of content which like again you can't escape it. Even if you're like signed to a label, you still have to do content anyway. So to me social media, it still always comes back to that, unless of course there are branches of the music industry where you don't actually need that much social media to be able to survive, like sync licensing for example. That's when your music gets like used for TV shows and movies, things like that, like that's called sync licensing. So those don't really require social media, but you need to know the right channels as well. Yeah, so yeah, other than that exception, I think in most contexts you would still probably need social media.
Okay. So is that the only advice you'll give to budding musicians and artists, even producers? What advice will you give them, especially those who are starting out or considering when they're still studying? What advice will you give to these people?
I would say that the most generic advice that I would give to all of them would be to be very clear. Ask yourself like the most difficult question you can ask. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And if the answer truly is music, then you have to make very significant changes in your life that forces you in that right direction that you want to go to. Like I said just now, it's about your internal compass and where you want to end up. And if you decide that you want to do music at least to like a large professional degree, you will need the willpower to start. Yeah, and once that happens, people with the same goals as you will come to you naturally, and circles will start to form, and before you know it, you have a community. Yeah, so that's the one generic advice I would give to all of them. Yeah.
I see. Okay. My last question, I think we are running out of time. My last question would be, what is one or two thing that listeners should know about musicians and music producers?
Wow, that's a hard question, man.
I know that is, but so if people kind of either meet you or see other musicians, what should they think of? What should they understand about you guys? Yeah, it could be that
it takes a long time to practice for a set. That's for maybe musicians, right? So when you write a song request, I'm not sure where that is going, but maybe music producers that like a track that is written out isn't simply just press record, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
it takes like hours. Like it could be that it takes many more hours to edit and to make sure everything's okay than it is to just simply do the recording. And anything that people should know about musicians and producers?
Musicians and producers.
What should they know about you?
I would say that everything that we do comes from a place of genuine love. Yeah. I would say it's very different from other types of careers where like I would say a large factor of why you would take a certain job is because of the money it brings you. Or if not, maybe you don't mind doing it. Unless like of course you fall into like the smaller percentage of people who really, really love what they're doing and they are not doing like what people consider a hobby as their professional career. Yeah, but a lot of people like don't necessarily 100% love what they're doing, but they don't mind doing it. Yeah, but for musicians and producers like myself, it comes from a place of 100% love. So everything that we do, like every note that we strike, everything like it's intentional. So I would say that maybe something that's applicable for them to take into consideration is that understand that music is our baby. Yes. So
you have used that word a few times in our past conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like if you don't like my music and you kind of shit on it, you're shitting on my baby. I can say that on this podcast. Like
no, it's good.
Yeah. It's like it's almost like the same as like if you try and like do a painting and then I say your painting sucks. Of course, it's gonna hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You mentioned that although it's like shitting your baby, is there what's the word you use? Constructive something?
Constructive interference.
So you will be okay with constructive interference?
Yeah. Of course, I'm a very direct person, so like I encourage all of that. But
just that you'll be shitting your baby, like, which is okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I'm personally okay with it, but I know that there are a lot of producers and musicians out there who really treasure their craft.
I see.
So maybe a bit touchy. Yeah. So if need to, you can give feedback and stuff
love,
like that. Yeah.
Before shitting on a baby, you
empathize first.
Empathize
a little
yes,
bit, just a little bit. Yeah, a little bit goes a long way. Yeah.
Nice. Daniel, I think thanks for your time. How can our listener reach you? Which platforms are you on? What song should they listen to you? What's your next release?
Okay. Actually, I just released a song yesterday. From the day that this podcast is being recorded, today is the 2nd of December. As my latest single actually just dropped on 1st December on a Friday. It's with a good friend of mine. His name is Skepticism. You can find our song, it's called For the Better, on all streaming platforms. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music. Just type in For the Better. My artist name is DLKC, so you can literally spell it out DLK and C. Yeah, it should pop up. Yeah, that song's about leaving someone you love behind. And like I mentioned just now, right, like music is really heartfelt for us. It's full of love, right? So that we put our heart, mind and soul, blood, sweat and tears into that track. So yeah, do give it a listen. If not, you can follow me on TikTok or Instagram at This Is DLKC. Checking my enunciation there to get it right. This is DLKC.
All joined together?
Yeah, all joined together. Yeah, so that's where we can connect. Yeah, I do live streams every week actually. On TikTok. Just kind of playing sentimental music, recalling all our teenage angst years. Like how like you tie memories into like songs. Yeah, so I take song requests and stuff like that, and we just kind of like jam for 2 to 3 hours and just play music that brings back all these memories. Open that floodgate for that evening. Yeah. So you can find me on all those platforms. So that's This Is DLKC. Yep.
Okay. Once again, Daniel, it was lovely to have you on. Thanks for being my first guest. For showing me how to do the recording and stuff. I think it was great to have you as my first guest.
Yeah, very happy to do it.
Okay.
My car's feeling heavy, and I can't keep it steady. Oh, my head's still spinning, and there ain't no winning with you when you just ain't ready. Back in my driveway, stay inside for a little while, but there's no way I'll ever want to see you now if you just ain't ready. But I can't stop thinking it's a spiral. Got me wishing you were here with me. But if I think about how you've been treating me, maybe I should go ahead and watch you leave. There isn't anything harder, but it's for the better. And what if I think about having someone else next to me? Maybe then I'll finally leave you be. What I'll always wonder, 'cause it's for the better for us now. I'm falling asleep, keeping tabs on reality, but my head is spinning as I watch you walk to me. Could I just be dreaming? Then you walk past me, grabbed a hand I don't recognize, and I wonder what he is over me. But I can't stop thinking it's a spiral. Got me wishing you were here with me. But if I think about how you've been treating me, maybe I should go ahead and watch you leave. There isn't anything harder, but it's for the better. What if I think about having someone else next to me? Maybe then I'll finally leave you be. What I'll always wonder, 'cause it's for the better for us now. But if I think about how you've been treating me, maybe I should go ahead and watch you leave. There isn't anything harder, but it's for the better. But what if I think about having someone else next to me?